Okay, so I think the topic is quite a relevant topic about how do we take decisions in these times. In normal times, it's I think in even the best of the times, decision making can be challenging. But at this moment, when there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of chaos, anxiety. How do I take decisions? What is the best way to take decisions in these times? And to explore this topic in detail, we have a very lovely speaker, very experienced speaker, Sister Jasmine Carter. Hello, Jasmine. Welcome to you. So Jasmine has worked as an air hostess with the British Airways, and and then she's embarked on a spiritual journey of contemplation and meditation, mainly to understand the mysteries of the mind. One of her many qualities is that she puts kindness and open heartedness at the forefront of her practice. She shares spiritual understanding with a lot of clarity. And personally, I've also enjoyed a lot of many conversations with her at the birthing center. She has lived in Hong Kong with a family for 10 years. And then she's moved back to the Isle of Man. You can imagine it's quite a contrast from Far East back to the Isle of Man with a family. But even that was very lovely, and the whole family enjoyed living and settling back in Isle of Man. And for the last 15 years, she's been living at the birthing center of the Brahma Kumaris, where she manages and coordinates the activities of the center. Okay, so I now would request Sister Jasmine to take us through this lovely topic. It's over to you.
Thank you.
I'll put you on spotlight now.
Okay. So thank you very much, Umang, and lovely to be with you all. Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, it's a pleasure to it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. So shall we start with a meditation then? So I'll just speak a few words. So I sit quietly and allow myself to deeply relax and become present. I'm a being of peace, and that peace fills my being as I relax more and more. I relax all the muscles in my body from head to toe. I just go through my body checking for any tension spots, maybe my feet or my hands, my jaw, my shoulders. And I relax those muscles. I feel energy being freed up and great calm as I become more and more relaxed. I relax the body. I relax the mind. And I become present with myself. Still. I'm a being of peace. I am a being of peace. I am peace. I relax into the knowing that peace is my true nature. This is the deep truth of I. I am peace. This knowledge, this knowing connects with the depth of who I am. I connect with I, the self, the soul, the living being in deep peace. Om Shanti. It's such a luxury these days, I think, to actually be able to relax, and wonderful, I think, to take these moments when I can do it. And you know, just as a matter of interest, just a matter of fact, there are only 2 times, in actual fact, in our lives when we breathe correctly. And one is when I'm in the bath, because if you hold your hand over your stomach while you're in the bath, you will find that as you breathe in, your stomach is pushed out, and vice versa. And the other time is when you meditate. If you put your hand on your stomach again, you will find the same. So to me, this really shows how relaxation is so important. Wonderful thing to practice, and that is relaxation, particularly through speaking to yourself in meditation. Because meditation is from the word madiri, to heal. So I was thinking, you know, about 2020, this year that we're in, and really, you know, it has been such a stressful year. It really has. We started off with Brexit and Trump. Then in March, we had this COVID problem, which has gone on and it's been so serious. And it's affected finances, it's affected so many things. It's affected things on every level, beyond our imagination before this happened, that this could happen. And so it has been a hugely stressful year, and we're at the end of July now. And it, I think, creates a heavy atmosphere, a negative atmosphere, you could say. And this atmosphere just creates such a vibration. And I feel sure that this affects people. But you know, having said that, I believe that our real stresses and strains come from things that we relate to as individuals on an individual level. And I think it's particularly relationships, situations, circumstances we find ourselves in, these sort of things. For me, my feeling is that this is what really causes the stress, you know, when we are in these sort of situations that affect us. And I'd like to tell you a story that really happened. And what happened was that a friend, I'll call this friend Nick, he went to Hong Kong to take over as the manager of a department in a professional firm there. And so for the first 3 days of being there, he was shadowing the outgoing manager. I'll call him Matt. So for 3 days, Nick was with Matt. And Matt said, the setup was that there were 30 people working in this open plan office. And they were all either trainee professionals or they had passed their exams. And so they all happened to be women. And then in the center of this open plan office was a small office for the manager. So Matt said, what you do is you come in the morning and you shut your door. And then when you want to speak to one of them, you open the door and you shout for them. And then when they bring their work in and it's not right, you just put a line through it and you tell them to go and find out the proper answer. This is not right. And so Nick listened to this for 3 days. And then on the 4th day, after Matt had gone, he went into the office, he opened the door, and when somebody needed to come in, particularly at the end of the day, when he has to sign their work off, he would say, pull up a chair, we'll go through this together. And he'd say, now, this is very good. Excellent. Yes, very good. This, I'll show you where you can get the information from. And he would pull out the right form or whatever it was that was needed. Anyway, the employees in the office, they were very suspicious about all this because they'd had 3 years of being shouted at and stressed up to the hilt. And the turnover in the department had been enormous and the department was running at a loss. And so they weren't at all sure about Nick. But anyway, as the weeks went by, they realized that Nick was completely genuine. He had a very big heart. He has a very big heart. And what they do in Hong Kong, actually, is they give their boss a nickname. And Nick eventually found out that his nickname was Superman. Anyway, Nick worked there and the department blossomed. There wasn't very, very little change of staff and only for a very good reason. And eventually, after 8 years, Nick gave his notice in to go back to England. And for the last month, each evening, one of those 30 people took Nick and his family out to entertain them in some way. And then on the 31st evening, they all had got together and had hired a hall. And there was a Chinese banquet, karaoke, everything you could imagine for entertainment. And they gave Nick such a send-off. He's still in touch with some of them. And also they come to him for references. And he's very happy if they've done a good job. He gives them a good reference. And so really, I was seeing so clearly how a big heart is such a necessity if you're going to live without stress. And a big heart gives you a lot of resilience because your self-respect increases, because you have a good relationship with yourself as well as with other people. And really, you're resilient when you're the same before the crisis, during the crisis, and after the crisis. It shows you have great inner strength. And that is stability. Inner strength actually is stability. So a big heart is absolutely essential. The other thing I just wanted to mention to you is in one of the Harry Potter books, there is this line, which to me is like a wonderful motto. It says, "Don't do what's easy, do what's right." Now, I think this is a brilliant distressor. An anti-stressor. It doesn't distress us, it's the opposite. It takes stress away. Because when we do the right thing, it again builds up our self-respect. And also, we have a clear conscience, and it's in keeping with my morals, my principles, and that just makes me light, and I can do the right thing, and then I can let go of it. I don't have to worry about the outcome. I can just do what's right under the circumstances and let go. And it's just so helpful because then I'm coming from this clean, clear space. And what happens when I do the right thing, according to my principles and my morals, because it's not that there's a right decision and a wrong decision. For me, it's more, am I right in myself making this? Is this in tune with my morals and my principles? And then if it is, and I act on it, then I stop thinking about it and I do just let the universe look after the outcome. Now, one other reason why it's so important for us to do this is because human nature, the natural nature of we humans, actually is to complete things. And we will go on thinking about whatever is going on until we come to a completion, until the circle is fully turned. For example, because when there's a gap and I go on thinking about the problem or the unaccomplished business, I'm actually using energy. I'm depleting my energy. But when we complete something, we stop thinking about it, so there's no energy leakage. And I'll just give you an example of what I mean. For example, say I was out and I came back and you'd taken a phone message for me and you tell me that Sarah rang. So I think, great, I must ring Sarah back. I wanted to speak to her. And I start doing something else. And then I have lunch. Then I wash up. And I keep thinking, oh my goodness, I still haven't phoned Sarah. And I go on doing this all during the afternoon. And by the time the evening comes, I think, oh, golly, I still haven't phoned her. And by now, the pleasure's drained out. The phone feels like a lump of lead. There's less spark in the conversation. And it's all because I went on thinking about it without doing anything. And so I was leaking my energy. And this takes a big toll on us. And so I do need to complete things. And a completion means a positive outcome as well. That's also very important. I need to be clean inside. I need to have good intentions. The other thing that is, I think, connected with doing things straight away and with completing things is actually what happened with that phone call business. I need to do things straight away. So if something comes in, do it to the nth degree of what can be done at that moment and forget about it. You could say, for a sort of motto of what this is only handle a piece of paper once. So if something needs doing, do it, forget about it. And if we do it like that and do it straight away, we'll have saved so much energy. And sometimes we won't even think, did I do it or not? Because it's so effortless when you do it straight away. So that also keeps stress hugely at bay. When I just get on with things, I do it straight away. Now, just occasionally it will backfire, just to be realistic. Sometimes we can be so quick and get something done, and then the whole thing gets changed, and I've got to contact all those people again. But don't worry about that, because more often than not, things are not changed, and you can bet on the right horse in something that's got to be done. Just do it straight away, and it's so energizing, and it's done. It's really got that clean, clear space, which I find so helpful. So that's something else I've really discovered for myself, that really helps. So what happens is, as my self-respect increases and I'm doing things in keeping with my conscience, is that I actually begin to like myself more. And when I like myself more, I will like other people more. And the other thing is that it's a lovely clean space when we're coming from truth. We don't try to hide things, and because we're not bad people. I'm sure most things we do are not so terrible, even if they've slightly embarrassed me or whatever. So the truth comes out. We can't hide truth. It will eventually come to the fore. And just as an example of this, my sister is retired now, but she used to work for the law courts. And she said that so often elderly people would be brought into court to be tried because it had taken the police that long to catch up with them. But the police caught up with them. So truth is always, it's a law of the universe. Truth is always revealed. So the more I can stay with truth, the better. Again, another stress reliever is, because otherwise I've got to cover up a lie with a lie. We all know it. We've all been there. But, the more I can just stay in truth, the less stressful I will be. It's a much calmer, easier life. So I feel also that's important. And the other thing I think really helps to make it easier to make decisions, to not get so stressed about things, is I need to change my self-talk. We are so hard on ourselves. We really do beat ourselves up. And, really we need to, I think, talk to ourselves the way we would talk to our best friend and make our mind our best friend. And, with an untidy child, if you keep just saying, oh, you're untidy, this, that, and the other, they're not going to change. It's not going to help. But if you say, you're very good at this, and it's lovely the way you never leave things around the house, everything's in your room. Now, would you like me to help you? The more we can speak kindly and be of support and help, the more we get cooperation, and that makes things move forward. So I need to do the same to myself. I'm a human being like everybody else. So I also have to be nice to myself. And so I think it's terribly important to change the self-talk. And, I was thinking, really, this is the beginning of meditation. Because, as I think I mentioned earlier, medere is the Latin word for to heal, and that's where the word meditation comes from. And so when I meditate, I'm actually speaking positively to myself. I'm seeing the beauty of the self. I start off with thinking, but actually what is so wonderfully healing about meditation is that we move into feeling. We stop thinking and go into feeling, and I feel the peace that's within me. I feel the love. And this is what is so healing, when I feel it. And we will feel it because it's there. This is part of us. This is our original, pure, beautiful nature that we can go back to, we can get back in touch with. And we see it, and then we lose it, and we see it again. We know it's there. So I can just bring it up more and more and more. And it's so enjoyable. And that's why, for me, meditation is a daily practice. I feel the benefit, and I feel the pleasure of doing it in actual way. So we do really need to be our own best friend, and we need to accept ourselves. We're not perfect, and we have, we can just accept ourselves where we are and make changes. Because that's one thing I think that is really important for me to understand. We do get challenged, but there is no point in me challenging other people. It doesn't help. In fact, it makes things worse. So I have to challenge myself. I have to be different. I have to do something different. I have to speak differently. I have to act differently. Because actually my behavior is totally in my hands. It's under my control. Same with my decisions. Decisions are under my control. No one can force me into making any decisions, or to saying any particular thing, or doing a particular thing. So the challenge is for me is to up the game and really make the most of my choices, of my decisions, and know that it's in my hands. One thing that I think is incredibly important, helpful really, it's helpful, is that in the Brahma Kumaris, we have, during the course that we do, the Raj Yoga meditation course, we actually speak about 8 powers, or you could call them 8 abilities. And really what the first 4 are leading up to is making a decision, in actual fact. And then the last 4 are about whether the decision has led to cooperation, because that is where a right decision will really end up by everybody cooperating, everybody feeling that they will benefit from the outcome, and so they're willing to lend a hand and be cooperative. And so it goes like this, really. We start off by withdrawing from the problem. So that pause, I stop thinking about the problem. I become aware that I am a soul and I have beautiful qualities. So I become quite detached from the problem at this moment. I'm giving myself space. And very quickly, and I sort of pull, what I'm doing really is I'm pulling back from all the needs and wants and things of the situation, the purpose, and just come back into a clean space of actually not wanting anything in particular for myself. But I just let go and I'm free. And these soul-conscious feelings begin to come up of peace and love. And then very quickly what I do then is I pack up all thoughts of the past. So say I'm thinking about a situation that you did something in the past that I didn't like and it blocked me, for example. No. I come from a place where I don't think like that. I allow you to change. I become present. I just don't think about anything from the past. And then I find that I am much more able to tolerate, because my heart's become bigger, because I've become soul conscious and aware of my beauty, and I don't want anything from the situation in particular, and I've packed up your past of what you did the last time. It doesn't exist in my mind at this moment. And I feel much more tolerant, because another word for tolerance actually is love. And then I can see for myself what I can accommodate in this situation. So it's like turning dials, a bit this way, a bit that. I can cope with that, but probably couldn't manage that right now. So I turn the dials to see what I can accommodate in this situation. Then my next stage that I do, because this is all happening very quickly actually, but the next point I look at is what is right in this situation, what is truth, what is in accordance with my values, my morals, my conscience. And so I then, because all the time I'm looking at myself and what I can manage, and so then I understand from discerning what is true here. Now I've made it much easier for myself to make a decision and to make a right decision. So the next point is I make the decision based on the previous powers. And when I made a decision, I have to realize that I'm going to have to be responsible for the decision I've made. And so the next is the power to face. I have to have courage and face my decision, but it shouldn't be difficult if everything is in place and I've made the right decision. So hopefully it is very easy for you to be willing to take responsibility. And then I will know whether I took the right decision from whether we work as a team, we all cooperate with each other, we all benefit. And that's what a good decision should lead to. It should lead to everybody benefiting. So I really value our 8 powers that we learn about in Raj Yoga meditation course. And they are geared to making decisions, because that's really what life's all about. And the true spirituality of making a decision is actually my ability to discern, to know what's right from wrong, to know what's in keeping with my conscience. So this is the deepest spiritual part of it, is the discernment, but it leads then to the decision. And, I think this business of packing up people's past is very, very helpful. Not always easy to do. It does mean I've got to become present. And I'll just give you an example of what I mean by this. Say a couple are in their house and the phone goes. And so we'll say the woman answers. And the person on the other end says, come round to us on Saturday. Come round to our house on Saturday. Now, she knows that her partner is very unsociable, very unlikely to want to come, and she wants to go. So she says, yes, fine. We'll come round next Saturday. Lovely. See you then. And then she's thinking to herself, right, now I've got to go and face my husband or my partner, whatever. And so now she has to go and say, well, actually, so-and-so just rang and they wanted us to go round on Saturday and I've said we'll go. He says, but why didn't you ask me? Well, because you always say no. I know what you're like. I know from past experience. You just say no. You don't want to go. So he says, look, you should have said to the person on the phone, I'll speak to Jim and we'll look in our diaries. We'd love to come, but we'll look in our diaries and we'll call you back. Why couldn't you say that to her? And she said, because you always say no. But actually, when we really come down to it, Jim was right. She should have said, and the best way to start to be able to say it is to take a pause. The person giving the invitation on the other end of the line has just given you the invitation. Best policy, I think, is to take a pause. Nobody notices. Just take a minute. Not a minute, sorry. Just take a second to pause. Put your thoughts in place. Come from a stable place. And you just say, sounds great, really nice idea. I will have to just check with Jim, look in our diaries, and I'll get straight back to you. Fine. Everybody's happy. And then if I go and say to Jim, this is what I've said, you might not want to go, but because I've done the right thing, I won't really be that bothered about whether we go or not, because what's more important to the human spirit is to behave well. It has such an effect on self-respect. So, human nature is good. So if she always does the right thing with these sort of situations, knowing that he does not like to go, and one day it's very likely, because she's doing the right thing, that he'll be very cooperative and say to her, look, I know you want to go, and I don't really want to go, but because you want to go, let's go. It's highly likely the day will come when he will say that. So to always do the right thing, take ownership of our decisions. Oh, wonderful. Because it's all about being true to the self and, connecting with the divine. Great deal of power is then actually experienced when we're true to ourselves and we connect with the divine, because we're souls. And there is something else actually I wanted to tell you about, and that is that in 2007, actually, I came down here in 2005, and in 2007, we had someone come and speak here who is from our hospital in India. Now, you might well know that in India, there is a Brahmakumaris hospital very near in Rajasthan to our headquarters. And this particular Brahmakumar, he works in the hospital. He's a BK, so he doesn't charge, and he's a psychiatrist. And so when he was here, he said to us, you know, most psychiatrists, not all obviously, but a lot of psychiatrists, let's say, want to keep you in the chair because you're paying them. But I'm a volunteer. I don't need you to be paying me. So I'm actually going to share with you what keeps people out of the chair. In other words, what keeps us sane. Now, if you're feeling very sane, you're very strong, you're very stable inside, which means you are not stressed, you're very resilient. And so I'd like to share with you, if you like, what the psychiatrist said. Now, as you can imagine, some of the things are challenging. You know, we're not going to get self-respect just like that. We have to work for it. And so he's telling us things that, for me, I really feel they work. But I also know that challenging to do them all the time, and certainly there are 7 of them. So the thing is to, whatever you take from this list, I feel would help you. So let me tell you the list and you make your own judgment. So the first point he said was, do everything that you need to do, that is all tasks and roles, with utmost sincerity and honesty. Roles must be carried out to a high standard, and we should be able to change roles as and when needed. So I can't be rigid. This is really to stop me being rigid, you know, that I'm so focused on doing this job so well that if somebody comes in who needs help, I'm too rigid to say that I can put my pen down and go and help them. So very important to be able to change roles. So he goes on to say, so I'll just repeat that without interrupting so that I could give you the whole flow of it. Roles must be carried out to a high standard, and we should be able to change roles as and when needed. If we are not flexible, we will have conflict and internal stress. So isn't it interesting, by not being cooperative, we actually stress ourselves. It's quite interesting, isn't it? So we have to be flexible still. Very important, because we need to be balanced, don't we? A balanced balanced nature. So if someone comes to the door, I need to go and attend to that. Might be someone who really needs help. So 2, develop and maintain good relationships with everyone that you meet. Do this regardless of their behavior. Now, you know, I was at our Slough Centre one day, and one of the people there, she was saying how she has a house she rents out, and the tenant isn't paying the rent. And she's getting into such a state about this. She's really stressed. And she's tried everything she could think of to make this woman pay her rent, and she won't. And then one day, she was going to a friend's birthday party. So she bought this big bunch of flowers. And she drove to the party, but on the way, she had to go past the house that was rented out to this woman. So she decides to stop and go and knock on the door and tell this woman she had to pay her rent. But somehow it happened that she went to the door with the flowers in her hand. And as soon as the woman opened the door, she said, "These are for you." And handed the woman this big bunch of flowers. She didn't know why she did it, it just happened. And the woman took the flowers, went away from the door, left the door open, came back a few minutes later with a cheque for the full amount. Amazing, you know? Something different had happened, something big-hearted had happened, and it just melted this tenant. She paid the bill immediately. Amazing. So, and also, I don't know about you, I appreciate people who can be the same with me, even if I make a mistake. You know, I really appreciate them and I never forget it. It's so beautiful. So 3, maintain the same mood of cheerfulness throughout the day. Easy to say, but it can be difficult to do. Avoid major ups and downs. If I feel irritable, rectify it at that moment. Lift your own mood naturally. No matter what the problem, we must find a way to resolve it. Everyone likes to be with happy and contented souls. If I have good wishes and I cooperate with people, then we are able to keep our happiness. So that was his 3rd point. His 4th, good diet is important, and have a good balance of sleep, diet, rest, and exercise. Too much or too little of any of these can cause stress. This includes fasting, over-exercising, too little sleep. Now, actually, you know, I happened to turn the radio on at random the other day in the car, and there were these 2 scientists talking to each other. And one said that we all used to think that we needed 8 hours sleep. And he said research has now shown him that 8 hours sleep a night is actually too much, and that the optimum amount of sleep is actually 7 hours. And then what was so nice was that this other scientist said, I have discovered exactly the same. So they had both found evidence that proved to them we don't need 8 hours. 7 hours is a good amount. I thought it was quite interesting that this science had really shown both of them the truth of this. So that was number 4. And actually the other thing is, you know, when we start meditating, we actually need less sleep again, you know, because meditation is so energizing. It is so healing that you won't necessarily need 7 hours. You might find between 5 and 6 hours is enough for you. But of course, we don't want to push ourselves. You know, either you'll find that or discover that for yourself, or it won't be the case. The other thing that this psychiatrist did say actually was that you can make up sleep. You know, sometimes you do get a bit short of sleep during the week for some different reasons, but in actual fact, sleep is according to age and activity, and you can make up for lost sleep at weekends or whenever you have free time. So it is possible for the human being to do that. This is what their research showed, and this is also actually what the psychiatrist was saying. The other thing that he said was make time for hobbies, etc. This acts as an antidepressant. If we do not have opportunities for pleasurable activities, we are acting like machines. Read, play music, meditate, etc. And then number 6, too much or too little money causes stress. We should aim to have sufficient. In developed countries, 80% of what people buy they do not use. It is piled up. Research shows that happiness in developed countries is lowest. Happiness in developed countries is lowest. And underdeveloped countries is low. Money is an asset if earned according to needs. A certain amount of money brings happiness. But research shows that after that amount of money, people with more money are in fact no happier than those with enough money. But excess money will create a burden. So I find that very interesting, that you can have enough money and that makes you happy. That's the happiest band. If you have a bit more than just what you need and a little bit for saving, you won't feel any happier than the person who has the correct amount for their needs. I found that quite interesting, actually. Too much of anything is a problem, isn't it? Too much choice is a problem. I remember in the Isle of Man, what was so nice was that the shops were small, and often a shop would sell two things. There would be, say, a card shop at the front, and it would sell wool at the back. And they wouldn't have too much of anything. And so you really used to choose between this and this, which was wonderful, because they'd done the research. They'd looked into what were two good products. And so that saved so much stress, just having a small amount to choose from. Because in those days, we couldn't order things on the internet or anything like that. This was before that time. But then I remember going to England, and, choice is wonderful in its own right, in its own place. But fresh from the Isle of Man, where there was almost no choice, you had this or you had this, I walked into a supermarket to get a can of baked beans, and there was a whole aisle. It was with this, with that, without that, but this, it just went on forever. And actually, I felt quite stressed. I just walked out of there with an empty basket because I wasn't used to it. I'm sure, now I'm used to it. It's great to have that amount of choice, but too much choice is a stressor, actually. We're better off knowing what we want and going for it. And we might see something a little bit better, but to keep it in parameters. The 7th point he came up with was gadgets and high technology are stressful. As a new version of the gadget comes onto the market very quickly, and we have to learn how to use it all over again. So that is stressful. I must say personally, I'm still very old-fashioned with gadgets because I know that if I buy something, I won't use 90% of it. So I just try to keep things as simple as possible. Anyway, so that's what the psychiatrist told us, which I've always treasured because I find it's very, very useful and helpful. There is just one other thing that's coming to my mind, actually, that I'd like to just offer to you because I thought it was so lovely. And that's that you will, I know, have heard of the Ubuntu tribe in Africa. And actually, what's his name? Gosh, it begins with an M. Mandela. Mandela was from the Ubuntu tribe. And, I was hearing that a group of anthropologists went to live for a short time with the Ubuntu tribe. And they were very interested in the way of thinking of this tribe. And one day the anthropologists put a big basket of sweets under a tree and said to all the children, line up a little, make a distance between the tree and where you line up. And then on the count of 3, run to the tree. Whoever gets there first, they can have the sweets for themselves as a prize. And so on the count of 3, all those children held each other's hands. They all ran together to the sweets under the tree, and they shared the sweets. I thought, wow, what a lovely stress-free environment those children have grown up in and are carrying on growing up in. With this wonderful policies of the Ubuntu tribe. So anyway, shall we stop there for some questions, and then I can say more if there aren't many questions, or I can, and then we'll finish with a meditation later. But I don't know if there are any questions.
So I think one question has come on the group chat. I think this is when you were talking about the elderly people who have been called to the court.
Right.
So the question is, as explained by you, that people turn old by the time the court decides the case. But if you think about them, they keep on waiting for the decision. And as they don't practice meditation, I think they might get more stressed after a long wait. Is it right karma in terms of courts to delay those cases?
Sorry, can you? I didn't quite catch what the question actually is. What?
I think this is in context with where you spoke about at times you have people coming to the court.
Yeah.
And by the time they come, they have now become elderly individuals.
Yes.
And but it's also the case where at times they are waiting for the court for them to give the dates or whatever it is, and the courts may delay the decision. That's actually the other side. So is it not creating? Are the courts creating that karma because they are delaying the cases, actually adding to the stress of the individual?
Right. Well, I don't think they will always be delaying things. I mean, they get through the work as quickly as they can. You know, as long as they're behaving correctly, they can't change the system. And so I don't feel that karma would be on their heads. You know, a crime had been committed, and eventually, I mean, the police have had a run around for years, you know, with these people not being able to trace them and track them because they've hidden themselves. They've disguised themselves. And so, you know, eventually, I mean, the police are very clever. They do catch up with them. And these people have to be brought to trial. So how the process of the courts running goes, you know, is not really in anyone's hand. You know, I would imagine they're doing their best to get through their list every day. I mean, I personally see my sister as a very moral and principled person, and she never ever mentioned that she felt that the running of the law courts was anything more else than doing the best they could, you know. Right. So I feel that stops the karma being created. Right.
And just in, I think, in the same context, there's a question by the same individual. But what if the individual is actually innocent? So if they are truthful in their actions and they're not part of the crime, but the whole legal process has been delayed.
Well, I think the police would have to be pretty sure.
Right, yeah.
Before they bring them to court. Yeah. You know, if that person is innocent, I mean, it can happen that innocent people go to prison. But in the majority of cases, you know, the police are pretty sure because the judge can very easily throw a case out of court. Indeed. If there isn't proper evidence there. Yeah.
And there are a lot of comments. I think just people are liking the whole, the 7 points which you mentioned. So a lot of comments on that where they've appreciated they've appreciated those points, the 7 points.
Yeah.
There's a question which has come from, it says, I'm supporting someone who's going through the divorce, and this person is having difficulty to move on. How do I support them as they keep going back to those emotions?
Right.
But that's quite a difficult situation to be in.
It is. And it's a very big situation. And it is so upsetting, these sort of situations. And I think it's still very important to carry on doing the right thing. And I'll tell you why I think this. You know, someone came here to the centre and she was going through a divorce. And she heard the session on the 8 powers. I just happened to be taking that session that night because their usual facilitator wasn't able to be with them. So I happened to sit in. We were doing the 8 powers. Well, she bounced out of that room and I didn't know why. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know anything about her because I'd only just come in that first night with this group. And I saw her again about a month later. And she said to me, I've just got to tell you what happened. When we were doing the 8 powers, she said, you see, I'm going through a divorce. And when we did the 8 powers, what had happened was my husband had said to me that he wants our family home. We have a beautiful family home, big 4-bedroom home. And if I gave him that home, most of our money is tied up in it. So I'd have no home and I'd have virtually no money. But he's adamant he wants the house. So she knows that that house means a lot to him. So when it got to the power to tolerate, she was thinking to herself, how much can I tolerate in this situation? And then she discerned the truth of the situation, which was that he loves this house. So she packed up all previous thoughts about him of revenge, anything else. And she just came into the present and she decided in that moment, I can give him the house. I can do that. I can give him the house. So that became her decision. And it was only because she'd looked at the 8 powers and the whole process of making a decision. And then I didn't see her for about a month and something incredible happened. She bounced back with her daughter, who was about 21, about a month later, and her daughter had been there that evening as well. Her daughter had also been doing the course. And she said to me, I've got to tell you what happened next. She said, my uncle my uncle died. I knew he was going to leave me money, but I didn't know it was going to be in 6 figures. So I bought myself a flat in Worthing. So now she's got a home and she's got some money.
Right.
Well, it didn't finish there. The next thing that happened was that she came again, at a time when I happened to see her, and she said, next, you know what's happened now? My aunt died. My aunt left me a villa in Italy. My daughter and I have just come back from Italy from a lovely holiday there in our house, in our villa in Italy. I was just speechless by this time. And then, as if that wasn't enough, a while later, she came for our Sunday talk with her best friend. And she came in the door and she said, this is my best friend. Oh, hello. And she said, my best friend lives on the Isle of Wight. I said, oh, we've been thinking of doing some programs in the Isle of Wight. Could you both stay on afterwards and give us some pointers? Yeah, no problem. So anyway, then her 2 daughters arrived. Then I heard them calling her best friend Granny. So I said, oh, who's your best friend? Is she related to you? She said, yes, she's my mother-in-law. So her best friend is her mother-in-law. And so she always behaves well. She always does things correctly. particularly since she heard the 8 powers. And her life is so smooth. She hasn't fallen out with her mother-in-law. Her husband is just so cooperative with her now because she did the right thing. So my advice to this particular lady or gentleman, whichever it is to really see if you can make right decisions. Do everything right and you will never regret it. According to your principles, to your morals. And you will look back and you'll be so pleased with yourself in that nice way, So I hope that helps. And please just ignore my advice if you wish. But there's just what happened and the benefit I saw of it.
And one of the 8 powers is the power to discern.
Yes. Yes. Very important power to discern the truth of the situation. Yeah. That's where the spirituality lies, in my discernment.
And just to maybe we can just talk a couple of more minutes on the power to discern, because that's something which a lot of people find it difficult. So one of the things what you mentioned is, I think at the start of your talk is, don't do what's easy, do what's right.
Yes.
At times, so I may want to do the right things, but I might not have the courage to do it. So how do you sort of build that courage to take the right decisions or do what's right?
Well, I think we have to start off, maybe if we can't take the right decision, to build up our self-respect. By building up my self-respect, I will actually build a good relationship with myself. I will naturally have a big heart, and then I will be able to take bigger decisions. And so for me, really something very important to improve my self-respect is, first of all, what the psychiatrist said, but also to practice meditation. Because, in meditation, we start off by thinking. I think I mentioned this earlier, but we end up feeling. And that's what heals us. And so the more I can meditate and realize the beauty of the self, feel my peace, feel the love. And that, I think, will help me to grow. And as I feel calmer and my heart is bigger, I'm more resilient, I have more self-respect, I like myself more, I like other people more, and I know I'm doing the right thing, then it becomes easier. And when I take that first step of courage to do the right thing, it could be quite a small thing to start with. And I find that I thought I would have hassle, and I'm actually finding I get cooperation. And so then that encourages me to be courageous about something a little bit bigger. So I think to start small is important, and to meditate so that I'm healing. I need to heal. And it's not about being right. I don't have to be right all the time, and I'm not perfect or anything else, but I have to be right. My intention has to be right. That's what will come through. And if my intention is right, then I can just let go. I don't have to worry about the outcome. And that's when it makes life so much less stressful. I don't have to worry about the outcome. If I do the right thing in the present moment, I can let go. No more having to think about it. Wonderful place to be.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the clarity. I think that's very important, I think. Okay, I think no more questions on the chat box. What I would do is just to conscious of the time also. I think I just give people the ability to unmute themselves if they want to ask a question.
Sure.
And I think if you do want to ask a question, unmute yourself, but please keep your question brief and concise. I think those 7 points were very, very powerful. Even I've taken a lot from that.
Yeah. They've meant a lot to me, actually. I think they're brilliant points.
Yeah.
And I keep hearing it proved in life.
Yeah.
What he's saying was accurate.
Right, yeah.
And that really is so lovely to hear.
So I think if you could sort of, if we all could sort of be focused on those 7 points, I think that's like a mantra for life, actually. About maybe at the end, maybe just quickly summarize or again repeat the 7 points. That would be useful at the end of the talk.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Maybe not, you may not want to read the entire, but just like...
Just give it the essence,
yeah,
sure.
That's quite of messages sent to me. Just saying people have been liking that, and those are quite useful. Yeah, I think we got Shalini on the call.
Hi there.
Hi, thank you, Sister Jasmine, for answering. It was me. I was asking that query.
Right.
And I did get the point that you said that, like the person has to discern what is right and, do what is right for them and not easy. But also like when we are supporting somebody, I also feel at some point that I cannot, I want the person to move on, but I can no longer do anything more to help them move on because they're taking their own time and they're going, back and forth in the emotions. So I think sometimes as a person who's supporting, you kind of like feel, just want to kind of like sometimes you feel angry that you can't get them out of that thing. And it becomes difficult because, so what does one do when you're supporting somebody? You are sensitive, you are aware that they're going through the divorce, so you can't be very harsh on them. But at the same time, you want to support them to move on with strength.
Yes. I feel that really she or he shouldn't be pulling you down in any way. That you've really got to look after yourself at this time and maybe lessen, if it's possible, your involvement so that she feels you're supporting her or him, but that you have a bit more space. Because otherwise it can very easily pull you down, because she's feeling quite negative, obviously. My feeling really is maybe to encourage her to do things like meditate, would she? I don't know if she would meditate. Maybe seek medical advice, maybe get some support with, she might be depressed, whatever it is. Maybe find someone who's qualified to talk to, things like this, so that a little bit of the responsibility is taken off your shoulders so that you're not pulled down by it. And the more positive she can be, the better. But of course, you can't tell her to be positive or anything. So my feeling is to give her all the good advice you can, and either she takes it or she doesn't, and don't worry whether she does or not. You just offer to the best of your intention and knowledge, but also be sure to look after yourself.
Yeah, I think so. I have to use the power of detachment as well.
Yes, steer her in the right direction with a lot of love to people who perhaps are qualified to help her in these situations if she's feeling very down about it all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, I think we've got one more question. If you need to pick one power from the 8, which one will you prefer? And similarly, which one of the 7 mantras?
Right, okay. Do you know, my absolute favourite of the 8 powers is the power to withdraw. I love that feeling of taking my claws out of the situation, standing back, and just seeing the situation as a detached observer. And then I can see that I feel loving towards myself and detached from wanting anything or needing anything. And I then see a bigger picture. When I'm very in a situation, I can't see clearly. My perception is not clear. The perspective, I can't get things into perspective. But when I withdraw, which is the first power of the 8, and I stand back and I just detach from wanting anything out of the situation, needing anything from the situation or the person, and then I can see the bigger picture and I can make a better decision. So for me, my absolute favourite is standing back from the situation, seeing it clearly.
Thank you so much.
Knowing what I'm dealing with. Oh, and then you wanted a synopsis of the 7. So the first one is to do everything to the best of your ability. So, if I'm mopping the kitchen floor, I've got to go under the work surfaces, got to go round the back of the door, no half measures. And that's where my self-respect will be, when I can do that. But also to know that if I need to stop doing it, not to get so engrossed in doing this completely and don't interrupt me, to also be able to be light enough that if something is needed of me, if I need to go and help somewhere, I can be flexible. That balance to me is very important. So that was the first one. And the next one was to develop good relationships with everybody. The more people are our friends, the better. We don't want to go around making enemies. It is a very short-term decision that will not help us. So just let everybody be our friends, It's such a lovely space. And maintain the same mood of cheerfulness. Everybody likes a cheerful face. Everyone likes a smiling face. So to put your mood right as quickly as you can when you feel your mood going down. Good diet, enough sleep, rest, exercise. So a good balance of lifestyle is important. And one of them, to have hobbies, make time for hobbies. It's a bit like I have a chair, and if I have meditation as one of my hobbies, say, and a job, and good relationships with my family, and maybe I have some religious faith or practice or whatever it might be, then if one of those legs falls off, I've got a stool. I've still got 3 legs to be supported. So it's good to have more than one support in our lives. And that's, I think, also relates back to having good relationships with everybody. So make time for hobbies. This acts as an antidepressant. Keeps us buoyant, keeps us cheerful. And actually, it just reminds me for a minute, the word leisure, because he's talking about having hobbies, the word leisure comes from the French word laisser-faire, which means allow. And I think that is so lovely, to think I can just allow things, which is also nice. And the other thing we have to be careful of is not to become workaholics. That's another good reason to have hobbies and relationships with friends and relatives and maybe a faith. Because, I remember this woman, she was a workaholic, and when she went into hospital, nobody visited her. And that was such a wake-up call for her. And so she decided to change. And then whenever there was a need, whenever somebody needed help, she would go and help. And she'd bake cakes for people and things like that. And it changed everything, it changed her life. Number 6 was too much or too little money causes stress. We've got a retired vicar's home round the corner here, and we're in touch with a couple of the vicars. And one of the vicars, I was on the seafront the other day, and he stopped me and said, I'm in a panic. I've got too much money. I want to give it to a charity. So I didn't like to say, we're a charity. I managed not to say that. And he didn't give it to us. Maybe he didn't give it to anybody. But I thought it was quite interesting that he realised that too much money was a stressor. And goes with too many choices. That's also a stressor. And then gadgets. High technology is stressful. And a new version of the gadget comes onto the market very quickly, and we have to learn how to use it all over again. So that was his points.
Maybe it's the last one. So which one of these 7 is your favorite one?
I think for me, although it is hugely challenging, is to do everything to the best of my ability.
Right, okay.
To keep a really high standard without being a perfectionist, and to know that I still need to be flexible.
Yeah.
That's my favorite one that I work on.
Well, that's something which even I would have I picked up from Dadi Janki, just wanting to be, where you do whatever task you do, you got to be, it has to be perfect. So yeah, that's quite a good one actually.
Yeah, and actually the psychiatrist was saying to do it with honesty and sincerity. That's also something Daddy Janki used to pick up on, wasn't it? This honesty.
Indeed.
Yeah, and that goes with sincerity, I think.
Okay, so thank you so much. I think thanks so much. It's been wonderful talk. Really, I think you've really taken us through lots and lots of aspects for us to churn on, reflect on, and so thank you so much for your time. And I think it might be useful if you can end the session with a guided commentary.
Sure, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, and thank you to everybody, to all those who've connected. I think it's been wonderful to have all of you.
So turn within to an inner space of quiet and stillness. Experience yourself to be a point of energy, a point of consciousness. This is the unchanging part of you. Now watch as everything else changes around you. Your thoughts, your feelings, people, circumstances. Create a distance between you and your life. Between you and your thoughts and feelings. Between you and all the people around you. Create a distance and let go. Let go of expecting things to be a certain way. Let go of expecting things from other people. Let go of blaming people, situations, yourself. Let go of your feelings of frustration and anger. Let go of control. When you let go, you can find an inner freedom, You are free to find within you the power of love. And with this love, you can have compassion for other people's pain and ignorance. And with this love, you can forgive both yourself and others. For life is a learning process. And we become wise through mistakes. When you let go, you are free to find your purpose and direction in life. You're free to find the inner strength, courage, and determination to follow that purpose. Om Shanti.